For months, I'd felt it. Little things. Margaret coming home later than usual, blaming traffic. Her phone face down on the table, notifications silenced. The sudden interest in new lingerie, but no interest in me. I told myself it was stress. Told myself I was imagining things. But the truth was, my gut had never lied to me before. At work, I was unbearable. Always bringing it up. Do you think she's cheating? Am I overreacting? My coworkers tried to be patient, but I could see the eye rolls when they thought I wasn't looking. Then came that Tuesday. We were all in the break room, paper plates of leftover pizza, bad coffee, the usual noise. My phone buzzed. Margaret. I said, hold on, it's my wife, and picked up. Hello. Nothing. Just muffled sounds. Then a sound I'll never forget. A low moan. A man's voice. Skin on skin. I froze. The break room went silent. Someone laughed nervously. My face burned. What's wrong? Dave asked. I put the phone on the table. Listen. We all heard it. The gasps. The rhythm. The two of them were completely lost in each other. I started shouting, her name, curses, but they didn't hear me. They were too busy. The shame was so thick I could barely breathe. My coworker sat there, wide-eyed, as I grabbed my phone, muttered something no one caught, and stormed out. Before I continue this story, I want to thank you for constantly staying with us. Please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the best that is yet to come. And drop your name and location in the comments for a shout-out in my next story. Today's shout-out goes to Peter from Leeds, UK. Let's continue. I didn't know what I'd do when I got home, but I knew I wouldn't be the same man when I left again. I don't remember the drive home. Only that my hands were gripping the wheels so tight, my knuckles ached. Every red light felt like a personal insult. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I could hear my own pulse in my ears. The front door was unlocked. I stepped inside and the air smelled like sweat and perfume. Voices came from upstairs. Hers, high and breathless, his deeper, careless. I didn't creep up the steps. I stomped, each one louder than the last. The noise upstairs stopped. A muffled, oh my God, and frantic movement. By the time I reached the bedroom, he was halfway into his jeans. Margaret stood there in nothing but a robe, hair messy, eyes wide. What the hell are you doing? She shouted, as if I was the one who had just walked in on them. I think the whole office could answer that question, I said, throwing my phone onto the bed. The call timer was still running. You but dial me, Margaret. She paled. He grabbed his shirt and bolted past me without a word. I can explain, she started. No, I cut her off. You can't explain, and you won't get the chance. She started crying. I walked past her, straight to the wardrobe, and pulled down the fireproof box where I kept important papers. I tucked it under my arm. What are you doing? Taking back my life, I said, and walked out the door. I didn't slam it. Slamming doors are for people who still want to be heard. That night, I stayed in a cheap hotel, staring at the ceiling. The betrayal was fresh and hot, but somewhere under it, something colder was forming. A plan. The first thing I learned about revenge, the real kind, is that you have to let the noise die down first. Margaret called me nonstop for a week. I didn't answer. Texts poured in. We need to talk. It was a mistake. I love you. I blocked her number. I spoke to a lawyer instead. Quiet, methodical, no emotions. We went through our accounts, assets, property titles. Margaret thought she had a claim to half of everything. She didn't know that I kept most of my savings and investments she had no legal right to touch. The lawyer advised patience. Don't tip her off until we're ready. So I played along in public. Let her post pictures on Facebook from before the fight. Let her mutual friends think we were working it out. Meanwhile, I was transferring funds, selling off assets under the radar, and setting up a private trust in my nephew's name, a kid she couldn't stand. At work, the break room incident had become office legend. People kept asking if I was okay. I told them I was fine. I wasn't, but I was focused. I dug in her phone records, paid for a private investigator, learned the guy she'd been with wasn't just a fling, he'd been around for nearly a year. They got on trips together, using the money I earned. She even bought him a watch I'd once wanted for myself. Finding that out should have crushed me. Instead, it sharpened me. The plan was simple. Remove myself from her life so completely that when she realized what she'd lost, it would already be gone. By the end of the third month, I had my exit mapped out. It wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be surgical. By the fourth month, the stage was set. The accounts were drained. Not recklessly, but legally. My name came off the joint accounts. The investments I'd built over 2 decades, liquidated and sent to a trust she'd never touch. The house, quietly listed, sold to a cash buyer who wanted it fast. Margaret didn't see any of it coming. She still thought I was cooling off. In reality, I was already gone. The sale closed on a Thursday. That same morning, my lawyer filed the divorce petition and had it delivered to her personally. Along with it came a notice to vacate the property within 30 days. Her name wasn't on the deed, and the court papers made that painfully clear. I wasn't there when she opened the envelope, but I can imagine it. The shock, the scrambling calls to friends, the anger when she realized I'd played the long game. To make sure she understood it wasn't an accident, I left one final detail. The title transfer receipt placed neatly on the kitchen counter. No note, no explanation, just proof. That night, I boarded a flight to Portugal with 2 suitcases and a passport. No forwarding address, no contact number, just air between us. From Lisbon, I moved south, eventually settling in a quiet coastal village where nobody knew my name. I sent most of the money I'd freed up to charities in her name. The irony? People thanked her for the donations she'd never made. Back home, she was left with a suitcase, her pride in pieces, and a story nobody quite believed. And me? I had my freedom. The first morning in my new place, I woke up to sunlight spilling through the curtains and the sound of gulls over the water. No buzzing phone, no tense silence at the breakfast table. Just quiet, the kind that fills your lungs instead of choking them. I rented a small flat above a bakery. Every morning, the smell of fresh bread drifted in with the sea breeze. I'd walk down to the harbor with a coffee, nod at fishermen unloading their catch, and feel the knot in my chest loosen a little more each day. The money I'd moved? 90% of it went to causes I believed in: scholarships, shelters, medical clinics. I never told them who I was. The rest was more than enough to live comfortably without lifting a finger. Margaret tried to reach me once through a mutual friend. I heard she was staying with her sister, telling anyone who'd listen that I'd gone mad. Maybe I had, mad enough to finally put myself first. I never called her, never sent a letter, never posted where I was. In my mind, she became part of another lifetime, a closed chapter. Grace, a co-worker from the old office, emailed me months later. "We still tell the break room story," she wrote. "You were a legend." I smiled, closed my laptop, and went back to watching the waves. I hadn't just left her. I'd left the version of myself that put up with less than I deserved. And I had no plans to ever see either one again. The past was gone. The present was mine. And the future was already here, in every quiet, perfect morning by the sea. If this story hit you, tap that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, subscribe for more stories, and tell us what you think about this story and whether you can relate or know someone who can relate in the comments for a shout out in the next story.